Well, since the start of the conflict, we've seen widespread protests and rallies supporting Israel and supporting Palestinians, including right here in the U.S. And we do want to bring in an expert to join in on this conversation. Joining us now is Jeremi Suri. He's a professor of history and public affairs at the University of Texas. As always, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
Okay, let's talk about this. Both sides of these protests really agreed that the civilians should not be caught in the middle. Can you just give us a little historical context as it relates to the impact on civilians as these tensions have really risen over the years?
Well, what Americans need to understand is that Israel and Gaza are both very small places, and Gaza in particular is very densely populated. There are 2 million people living in Gaza in an area that's about half the size of Austin. And so this is a very densely packed area, and the history of conflict between Israel and Palestinian groups, particularly in Gaza, has been that when these two sides are in military conflict, hundreds and thousands of civilians get caught in the crosshairs. And it's important to understand that there are many, many residents of Gaza who are not members of Hamas or not necessarily supporters of Hamas, just as there are many Israelis who don't necessarily support everything their government does. So civilian casualties are unavoidable, and particularly if there is a massive set of military actions, such as the horrible terrorist attacks committed by Hamas or retaliatory actions on a same scale, that's going to cause thousands of civilian deaths.
Okay, and I want to get into something the United Nations Secretary General said. Antonio Guterres, he sent out a release saying that he was concerned about the announcement that Israel will initiate a complete siege of the Gaza Strip. And he said that that would mean no electricity. It would also mean no food or fuel that can get into Gaza. He went on to say that there needs to be a stop to the cycle of violence. But based on the developments we've seen this week, based on the videos that we've seen this week, do we think that it will escalate?
Yes, I think the conflict is already escalating. Let's begin by saying what I think is obvious, right? That Israel, like any other country, has a right to defend itself. If people came across a border and kidnapped and killed hundreds and thousands of Americans, we would certainly act in our self-defense. We have no right to tell a country not to do the same. So Israel has a right to act in its self-defense, but self-defense does not provide a blank check to commit any acts of violence that one wants. Israel has not said that, but a siege is actually against international law. It would, in fact, prevent anyone in Gaza from having access to electricity and food and other elements that you described. That does seem a bit far to go. So far, Israel hasn't done that. So we have to see. I think the hope is that Israel will defend itself, will apprehend and prevent further terrorist attacks, but will also obey what are reasonable limitations on an appropriate act of self-defense. But we're not assured that'll happen.
Okay, and we heard live from President Joe Biden about 3 hours ago. He's calling for urgent action from Capitol Hill. Can you give us, though, before we get there, just some context of the partnership between Israel as well as the United States?
So Israel has been and is the largest recipient of U.S. foreign aid, as well as the largest recipient of military aid anywhere in the world. It's more than $3 billion per year that we provide to Israel, as well as all kinds of other support. This is because Israel has been the firmest, most consistent American ally in the Middle East. At the same time, American support for Israel has never been uncritical. The United States government has put limitations on what it thinks are acceptable acts by Israel in occupied territories and elsewhere. So this is a partnership where the United States strongly supports Israel, and I'm sure that will continue, but a partnership also where the United States seeks to place limitations on what Israel does with the aid that we give them. And of course, we place limitations on our aid with all countries. That's the relationship. Congress has been very supportive of Israel, particularly in the last decade, and I would expect that to continue. Of course, it's not possible when Congress doesn't have a speaker to act on.
Okay, and then about 2 hours ago, we heard from U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. He's saying the U.S. is engaged in contingency planning if the current conflict really escalates. What could that look like? You talk about allies. Will they be brought into this conversation?
Well, I think the real worry is that we will soon find Iran and Israel at war. There is some evidence that the Iranian government has been supportive of Hamas's actions, certainly over the last 10 to 20 years. The Iranian government has been a key supporter of Hamas, just as we've been a key supporter of Israel. So far, there has been no evidence that Iran was directly involved in the operations this last weekend, but there might be evidence of that. And Israel, and particularly Israel's leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, has long argued that Israel might need to go to war against Iran in order to stop Iranian support for Hamas. If that happens, we then have a much wider regional war. The Iranian and Israeli armies are world-class military organizations capable of basically placing the whole region in a war footing. The United States would have to get involved. We are too deeply connected to that region. We have moved military force in the region to prepare for that. And also, we hope to keep the two sides apart. We do not want to see a war between Iran and Israel.
Okay, Professor Jeremi Suri from the University of Texas at Austin, as always, thank you so much for providing that context and being with us.
My pleasure.
First warning weather with Chief